which I'm most happy to do. We're just gathering our panel together, and as you know, we're having a big day, a big disruptive day, but thank you all for coming along, and we hope to give you a few perhaps finer grain insights about the way the educational issues and the work that's done around here. You've heard education mentioned as such a key platform in just about everything that Yolngu Futures and Indigenous Futures involve. Well, now we're just going to take a sharper and finer look at perhaps what's happening here locally. So I hope you enjoy the speakers that we've got. Just to give a quick and introductory overview to what's happening here, it's my very great pleasure to introduce someone who you've seen around here so often in so many places, Mr. Wali Wurrungmara. But what I want to say is that here's a man who, over as long as I've been around, 30 or 40 years, has committed himself to education and to the reform in education. He's worked with just about every educator that's here in the room. He's worked along with Ken Davies. He's made an absolutely magnificent contribution to education, continues to do so. It's my great pleasure to introduce Wali to you. Wally would prefer to sit down and speak, or do you wish to speak from up here? Okay. Is that all right if we speak from the microphones on the table? Done.
Okay. My name is Wali Wurrungmara. I'm originally from Yirrkala. I lived here, worked here, and every now and then I used to go out to do some works here and there. And I just would like to say a little bit about myself, because I was one of the strong leaders, plus of course other people as well, who looks at Aboriginal education very strongly and sees in the way that it would be only the best way for us to be able to move forward in the world of today. I think seeing that we are running into all kinds of problems and all kinds of difficulties that we often run into or face up to, I think the Aboriginal education is very important. And I always had the feeling, after watching kids go through schoolings, and there were times when I taught in the schools as well, but just talking to the teachers, both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, and I got to get the idea of Aboriginal education going forward. And there was a statement that I made. This was in 1996, wasn't it? 1996. Now we've got other people helping me out now. Okay, 1996, yeah. I said to the school councillors at that time, during the time when ex-principal was over here, and he's now passed away, and I know, you know which one I'm talking about, Dr. Unabingo, and he and myself were really good friends. We worked together very much closely with the Aboriginal teachers here, and not only Aboriginal teachers, but also with Abunda teachers. I said then it was more or less a vision statement that I made, and a lot of the people here in the school saying It's a good idea. The vision statement I said was, I truly and honestly believe that our kids can be better educated and go even further in order to get a standard of education that would lead us and themselves into a world of independence instead of dependence. And this is the kind of lifestyle we would like our kids to be able to achieve. It only requires us parents, grandfathers, grandmothers, close relatives, in order to shape this person by giving them that opportunity, but by helping them so that they can go to school every day, as it is now the requirement of the Department of Education. And not only a requirement of the Department of Education, we should also see this requirement as being a part of the community effort. We should all put our heads together and start helping our kids to be able to live in a world like we are now living in. You need a standard of education that you can compete with, that you can make yourself understood, and also to know where you're heading for, so they can, well equipped to be able to face the challenges into the future. And I think it is very important that this should be done. I think we need to, as parents, relatives, grandkids, our grandchildren, our grandpas and fathers, to be able to put our heads together and say, look, so later on when they do have the graduation, we can say to these kids, well done, you've done your bit. Now we're going to be here all along with you. I think we need to say that right now. We are here to help you and support you. We want you to go to school every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Wally. I'd now like to introduce to you Barewa Mununguru, Chairman of the Lanapoi Association, Chairman for quite a long time of the Yumbirrpa School Council, and been advisor to the school for a long period of time. He'll say a few words, and he's particularly going to cover an area of great interest and a key area really of governance and control of schools and how that applies across homelands and the Yokala School. Thank you, Barewa.
Thank you, Greg. As Greg said, my name is Barewa Mununguru, and I am a great supporter of education. Back in 1970, when there was a movement of the land, of the old people, the first priority was education. Education goes along with health. The main thing at that time, when there was a lot of destruction happening, a lot of things, and the kids weren't going to school, they were just growing like the wildflowers and not attending any schools. I go back, but now when I come look at it now, there is a strong covenant within of Yumbirrpa School Council and Homeland School. There is a good quality of education happening, and that's what we want to see for the kids to achieve. As the chairman of the NLC and the chairman of Yumbirrpa School Council back in 1996 stated that the vision statement of the school was that any child can achieve anything if they want to attend school. And that gives the responsibility of the parents to urge the kids to go to school, because school is vital. It is the key that unlocks the outside world for you to go anywhere in the world. Without education, you are bound to have nothing. So, yes, we as an educators of the Yirrkala Yambirpa School have that strong governance to work with our kids and to support them all along to be able to achieve something in the long run and to see that they are somebody going out there to experience something of great interest that might take a long term for them to become a leaders of tomorrow. Thank you.
I might just fill in a couple of spaces there in terms of the governance arrangements at the school. It is rather unique. There are two schools that service the Yolngu people in this part of the world. There's the Yirrkala School, which many of you may have visited or will visit tomorrow, and there are the Homeland School, serviced by Homeland's Resource Centre, and there is a school council, the Yambirpa School Council, which covers and governs both those schools. A long history which won't be gone into today about where a reform program to introduce a system of shared partnership governance with the Department of Education and the leaders here, which was really quite innovative. And you now see in the discussions about the way education should be reformed that one of the things they're talking about, of course, is local governance and involvement of parents. But now I'd like to introduce to you really a bit of a legend in the educational area. I've got a couple of legend teachers up here, actually. You've all seen Dangal in other places, but just quickly to give you a picture of her contribution over the years to education. Teacher, school secretary, linguistic advisor, director of a family business that's national and international, a board member of the Utieni Foundation, an executive member of the Yirrkala School Council, a board member of Dimuru, a lecturer and research fellow at CDU, and of course a senior clan person. So what a background. She's going to give us a little personal reflection on education of herself and her family and what they've done and where they're going. Welcome, Dangal.
Alrighty, President. Okay. I don't like talking about myself, but I'll make it short and how I see education today anyway. I went to school in Darwin. I was over at Kaliwinku first. That's where I grew up and went to school there. And I guess I didn't realize that I had the knowledge to be able to go from there somewhere else to have the secondary education. So I went along and had to do, that was my choice, to be able to get whatever education that I could bring back to the community. But that didn't occur to me until at later times, after realizing what the community really wants in the area of education. And went through, after I finished school, I did few jobs around that enabled me to really see and to help the community in education. And I could see things that are happening, people lacking some kind of education, especially those ones that are the ones that we grew up together. And half of us has reached whatever we wanted, and some have lacked and went the wrong side of the road, as you all know. That's what's happened in your walk of life. After coming from school, out of school, working, and then going back to education again, went back to Galiwinko, started my teacher training, and ended up working at Yirrkala School with Dr. Yunupingu as the principal. Working together at Yirrkala really made everything come together, and especially with the Yolngu teachers and the teachers that were there, we became one. Not to listen to what one has to say, but as one whole, making decisions, what we can overcome some obstacles and how to be able to solve them together instead of just one voice up there as everyone else in the whole of Australia, principal up there, the rest of the school bodies down here. No, we have to be one. And that's how Yirrkala School formed that Yambirpa School Council, where community elders can have a say for the school and what education is required for the children. And then again, after retiring, not really retiring, I guess, I'm always being pulled back to the school, whether it's the Yirrkala CSC or the Homeland School, but I like doing it anyway. And this time I'm looking at it from a wider perspective. And I know which children graduates from Yirrkala. My own three children graduated from Yirrkala. And one of my son used to work at the refinery, and then he wanted to start a life as a married life and got a child, and that's he's a father now. My eldest daughter, the same, she's a mother. And my youngest daughter, she's with the Timro land management as well as a ranger. So I'm glad my children all went through, and I'm now concentrating on my grandchildren. And one of them has been staying with the other grandma down in Melbourne. She's come up, they have all come up, and when they get here, I send them straight into the homeland, which is their traditional homeland. They go out there, that's to stop them from using the phone and the Facebook and whatever. That's another distraction for our young people. And you all know that. The eldest one's attending Winona Girls' School in Sydney. And the other two are still in South Gippsland Secondary School, and one's attending Foster Primary. And they're staying with the other grandmother. And I'm glad of that. And when they come back, they get the education that they require to stabilize them. What I mean, children can go out only when they're stabled. And that is the foundation and the basis where we come from. Then we can achieve anything. All our youths can get that education, go out, having both worlds to achieve anything in their lives. And this is the time we need to really focus on our young people, the youths mainly, and to support them. And I sat down with a friend, and sort of the opportunity is there for them to either get it or refuse it. But we, as parents and relatives, we need to push them, whether they like it or not. As I say to my grandkids, later on you'll be able to thank me for pushing you that hard. And I got that from a friend down here who usually does that to me all the time through business. So the opportunity is there for our young people. They are our future leaders, not only for our children, for wider Australians as well. And I've just been to the youth forum this morning, and young guys from Scots College came up that they can actually say what their name is in Yolngamata, what their skin name is, and what their moiety is. And I was surprised. And those young guys, having that, coming up here and learning, can one day become the leaders in Parliament. And so the rest of the children from having that connection and that learning together, learning vice versa. We could have Yolngu Prime Minister up there with those students who came to this be in government. Thank you.
Thank you, Dangal. There's a very important message embedded in Dangal's family story there. You've heard the term all around the place for a long period of time about both ways education. Well, here's a presentation about how both ways education is being nuanced and elaborated. Both ways education takes place in homeland schools and the Yurkala school, but now both ways education can be seen between a partnership that parents are choosing to take between the schooling arrangements here and other schools outside of here. Watch this space, I guess. Next, I would like to, just before I do, I'll acknowledge the Senior Cultural Advisor to the school who has joined us, Mr. Butta Wunungmara, and now I'd like to just introduce a particular program for a quick look at a particular program that's really innovative. I don't think it's been tried anywhere else than around here. It's a program that's a partnership called Learning on Country between the ranger groups and schools across 4 groups in the Northern Territory. It draws on some tried and true ideas from schools. I'd also like to acknowledge some of the contributions that people made here to get that program off the ground. Timmy Burrawonga, Joe Burrawonga, who's here but played a great role in getting that project up and running, lobbying Canberra. It's up and running. It's here for you to look at if you wish to. As you walk around today and tomorrow, you'll see displays about the program. But I'll introduce to you someone else. I seem to be introducing people who've been introduced that many times, but there's good reason for that. I'd like now again to introduce Jawa Yunupingu, who will give you a quick rundown of the Learning on Country program. Thank you, Jawa.
Hello again. Learning on Country. It takes me back when I first started Dimru, along with my other brother and a gentleman here, Pota Wunumura. There was only 4 of us who started Dimru Land Management in 1993. I have been with Dimru. I was with Dimru for at least 17 to 18 years till I left in 2009. During those years, we not only helped look after the country, or managed to look after the country. We'd always be going to schools, Yirkala school, and teaching young children in the school with the help of the Yirkala teachers about country. But we took it by heart that children needed to learn all that. Putting them in a classroom was one option of educating these kids. But there was a need for these children to learn the traditional way of learning. And I tell you from my heart that every school visit that we rangers did, children at Yirkala School were looking forward to learning from us. Yes? Muka? You ask him, he'll tell you. And him. Craig used to be our CEO at Dimru from 93 to when he left. I don't know when he left, but anyways, these 2 ways of learning helped. We, the Rangers, the 4 of us, would travel to Bachelor College to gain our diploma. And we were away weeks on ends, and there was never anyone out here to look after the country. No Rangers. It was Greg's work, I guess. But kids needed to learn the traditional way of life, or learning. Then we came up with a junior program idea. But there was always shortage of fundings. Where did we get the rupiah from? Where are we getting all the money from? Good question. No one bothered, no one seemed to care. But to be honest, regardless of fundings, we were there to teach the school kids. Then we decided another approach. Why don't we go to Nulunbu High School, Nulunbu Primary School, teach the Balanda kids, Tangaba kids, but Yolngu culture. But wait, we could combine the two schools together, teach them the Ngabigi way of learning, the Yolngu way of learning. But let's not do it in the classroom. Let's go teach them on country, and we do that. We take them down to one of the local beaches, like Wirwawi, Kalaro. Kids really love that. Anyway, I never had much education myself, to be honest. I look at you, I don't want to even talk about it. But I guess I learned what I could from mentors, people you see sitting here today in front of you. Puta, my sister, Tangal, Brewa, Wally. These people mentored me a long time. When I used to work at the Lead Protection Center, these people were there. And through ceremonies and all that, these people mentored me. They were my mentors. It seems great to see people like me to stand in front of you and address you, but where is the next core of people who's going to stand in for us and carry on? But I guess it's up in the little hands of a young generation to get the utmost education and to come out and meet the challenges, what lies ahead for them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jara. One of the real advantages of the Garma Festival, of course, is that opportunity to mix and talk and outside and beyond the forum. And please take that opportunity with the educators and the people here on this panel to talk with them, to gather some further information that you may find really interesting. That's part of the philosophy of Garma, sharing of ideas, and we've got a couple more days to do it in. Look, it's really another legend that I should introduce here. Motura Murungur, Gomaich clan, all sorts of awards through her long career as an educator. She's devoted her life to education, and even in retirement now still does. She's been a literacy worker. She's worked in the bilingual school. She's a trained teacher. She spent 83 to 92 working in the bilingual school at Yokala, and then since 96 to 2012 she's worked in homeland schools. She's going to talk to you a little bit about her experiences and the ideas she's gleaned over a lifetime of dedication to education. Thank you, Motra.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a great day for everyone. It's a bit windy. So anyway, as you've already heard from Greg Wern, the history of my long life journey from 75 to 92, I was at Yokala School when I became a teacher, working closely with Dr. Yunupingo And Dr. Yunupingo and myself, we traveled to Singapore together. It's a very important message to all of you, how we traveled together for the first bilingual conference in Singapore. So from then on, my life committed to the school more effectively through Bachelor College. And through my life, it built up a strong leadership for me and for my community. And then I moved back to my own homelands in '92. And then I started a classroom teacher at Kartala School. And through that journey, you already have heard how my leadership, a strong, more effective leadership that I developed through my communities, through our schools, from Yitkala Homeland School, from Yambirpa School, Council, and how the boarding facilities will be happening at Kartala School through that strong leadership. And Kartala School, through the Homeland School resources, the principal is sitting right in front of the row, the two principals, Heidi and Lynette. And we have worked strongly together, consulting the government, how we need a strong higher education for our students in homelands. And through that long journey, I am a role model also to my Yolngu teachers in homelands. They are also stepping into my shoes to become a strong leaders, working together, sharing together, working as a team, developing the program together. And I've done a great, successful work with my Wako principal and my Kato Lynette, working as a mentor to support a lot of our Yolngu teachers in homelands. And most of our homelands, some of our homelands, are just about to complete their diploma. Through me as a mentor, that I'm working really strongly to support Yolngu teachers, working with children, working with communities. And it is very important for both Yolngu, Ngapaki, working together. As you've already heard, what does the partnership mean to all of us? It means something like that. Now, it's a reality that we can put that into practice, see things happening more and more to educate our children. And our focus is not going backwards. Our focus is going forward to see our children have a good education, how they can take off our role in the past. That's the future education that I'm talking about, our children, both Yolngu children. And in the past, I had students coming in from mainstream schools. It's so wonderful to have all those students from Sydney Grammar School learning on country. Also, we've got a strong link with Melbourne students, Woodley students. They come out often to Kartalla to learn about cultures and the language, including the Yolngu communities, working together to support those mainstream students, and Iraqi Rangers from homeland. And we are already there to support everyone, not only Yolngu students, but also the Ngapaki students. And last year I had Nhulunbuy High School students came out to Kartalla, and I taught them the language, the culture. You know, it's more effective how things work out in my homelands. And that goes for all of us. For Yirkala School as well, they should be coming out to Kartalla. And this is very important, more challenging for all of us to work together. And now I'm not fully retired, but I am still working as a consultant for the two schools. With that Australian curriculum, I was strongly involved how we can leverage and implement that program into both cultures. And this is very, very important. And I was part of the party of unpacking that Australian curriculum in Nhulunbuy High School when the Australian national curriculum was first introduced. And there was a lot of discussion in both schools what should be done about integrating the curriculum into two cultures. And it's very, very important. So everybody, both Yolngu students and Ngapaki students, can learn together in both cultures. Okay, that's all I need to talk about. Thank you.
You might remember yesterday in the introductory keynote addresses, Yanamol's inspiring speech, she said that when she mentioned education, she said, "My family made me go to school." That, of course, is her mum. Look, the last point she made gives us an opportunity just to invite quickly a couple of speakers just to give us an insight about some of the work that is being done in terms of the options that are available to students beyond this particular area. And I'd like to ask if they wouldn't mind coming forward, Cam Begg and Andrew Penfold. Cam has a foundation which he'll briefly tell us about, the Mamara Rom Foundation, and some of the students are sitting here right here. And Andrew Begg, the Australian Indigenous Education Foundation, a major institution that's supporting scholarship. So they'll give us a very quick account and overview, and then we'll ask Ken Davies to conclude our session today.
G'day. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Greg. My name's Cam Begg, and we started, my partner Melissa and I started the Marama Rom Foundation in 2011. It's a not-for-profit charitable foundation that's empowering the future leaders of Arnhem Land. So we have 4 young men, 3 of whom are sitting here, Gerald Wunamura, Yuramal Marika and Dion Wunamura. Dari, here we go. And these three Yarrawin and one more Severo Woonamora, they have come down to Geelong, and they are living in a self-contained unit below Melissa and my house. So they're Maramarom. The word Maramarom means two words meaning two worlds, two cultures. So these lads are learning how to walk in two worlds. We see ourselves as an option for good students to perhaps be further developed. And so these four students we have at the moment, they have to learn to live independently. They have to do all their own cooking and shopping, cleaning, and they make their lunch and take to school. They go to St Joseph's College in Geelong. It's a very large all-boys school who have provided a fantastic curriculum for the lads that really caters their individual needs. They learn about healthy lifestyles and healthy options. They play football down there, of course. They play with St Mary's in Geelong. It's a very strong family-orientated club. And they also perform around at festivals and different places in Melbourne and Geelong district as Yiramal and the Only Boys, and they're fantastic sort of blend of culture and pop music. I think they actually will be performing at Woodford this year. So we sort of it's sort of expected that it is expected that these lads will develop and learn to walk in two worlds and then be able to take on leadership positions in the future back in Arnhem Land and in their communities. They're supported in every way. Yiramal graduated from Year 12 VCAL last year, and this year he's doing a Year 13 to sort of improve his literacy and numeracy, and we're looking to get him into university next year. And the other three lads are looking forward to graduating next year from Year 12 and also looking beyond to perhaps university and tertiary positions. And so we see ourselves as we work with the schools when Yiramal hopefully finds a place next year, and we'll have room for one more student. And so we need to start talking to, have started talking to families and teachers now to find a good student who can step up and take on that role. And I mean, the lads are really focused. They've taken it really seriously. They actually had an opportunity to play football today, but they gave that up to be here, and I think that's indicative. You know, they love their footy, but they're here, so it's pretty good effort. And yeah, we're just really proud of the work they're doing, and we hope to see them really succeed in whatever pursuits that they choose. Thank you.
G'day. Hi, good afternoon everyone, and thank you to all the previous speakers for sharing your knowledge with us. My name's Andrew Penfold. I run the Australian Indigenous Education Foundation. We provide scholarships for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children to go to some of the best boarding schools in the country. Essentially, I set this program up about 10 years ago. I was previously a lawyer and a banker, and I stepped away from that career about 10 years ago to start on a voluntary basis, raising money to help Aboriginal kids get into a boarding school in Sydney, St Joseph's College. And after about 5 years of doing that from my dining room at home, my wife and I decided to dedicate ourselves to expanding that onto a much larger scale so that we could really provide opportunities for more Aboriginal children from across the country to access boarding schools if they chose to do so. Just a couple of things I thought would be worth pointing out. One is that our work is very much about providing choice and access to the families and parents and grandparents and grandfathers and fathers and community elders who want these opportunities for their children. In no way have we ever and do we ever promote that boarding school is the answer for Aboriginal children at all. In no way do we ever promote that all Aboriginal children or any Aboriginal children should go to boarding school. The only promotion we do is to try and keep up with the demand that we get from families and mothers and grandparents around the country who want their children to be able to have access to the sorts of schools that we've heard about today and yesterday for some children. And to open the doors of those schools, because as we've heard and as we all know, education really is a key to the future, and we've heard a lot about that in the last couple of days, about the importance of providing access to great quality education and to great quality schools. And the simple truth is that I believe, and I think we all believe, that Aboriginal children should have access to the same quality schools as I want for my own children, and they should have access to the best quality education this country has to offer. And that's not to say that that education and that quality of education only comes from boarding schools in the city. We absolutely strongly support and encourage improvement in education right across the country in homeland schools and community schools and schools everywhere to make sure that students have access to the sort of opportunities in schooling that their families want for them. So if that be that some children and families choose to go to local schooling, homeland schooling, and where they can get that education in their local culture and community, then we applaud and support that. And there are also many families and communities who actually want their children to be able to go off and experience opportunities in the bigger world outside their home community. And so our job is to create the opportunity for that. In the organisation that we now run, the Australian Indigenous Education Foundation, we've raised about $80 million in the last 4 years, and that enables us to provide about 400 scholarships per annum at about 35 boarding schools around Australia. I'd like to be here next year to say that that's now $140 million and 1,000 students around Australia, and we're certainly working hard to do that. Just to touch on a couple of things that we talked about, the two-way and the both ways education, and I think Greg touched on it a little bit earlier, that often when we hear about both ways education, we all assume that we're talking about Aboriginal children getting a great quality education in their culture and their heritage in home and the traditional ways and so on, and also having a foot in the other world where they're able to learn about education in the other context of the Western or the white fella context. I think the other aspect of both ways education, and Greg touched on this earlier, is the opportunity for non-Aboriginal students in these schools all around the country to learn from the other Aboriginal students, boys and girls in those schools, about their culture and heritage as well. And I think the future that we'd love to see is where there is stronger partnerships between some of the great schools in the cities and some of the local schools, be it in homeland schools or other rural and regional communities around Australia. Because really what, we heard Noel talk about yesterday, for example, the mouse and the elephant, the 97% and the 3%. And I think, it doesn't have to be that stark. When we have an opportunity for non-Aboriginal children and Aboriginal children to go to school together and play sport together and learn together and develop friendships, then the whole reconciliation process for all of Australia to that brighter future becomes much more of a reality. So what we see in a lot of the schools that we work in is the non-Aboriginal kids learning so much from the Aboriginal students as well, and that's something that those schools really value. What would be great to see is more schools from the city partnering with local schools in community where they can have exchange programs, for example, and teachers are able to come up here from the city, and teachers from here can go down from the city, and students are going both ways as well. So we really start to see some of this two-way interaction. Just a little bit about the work that we've been doing. As I said, we've got about 400 students currently on scholarships. We recently heard from the former Education Minister, Peter Garrett, that according to Federal Education Department statistics, this program has now got the highest rate of Year 12 completion of any other program in the country. So nearly over 90% of students are staying at school and finishing Year 12, and of course we know the national average is a lot lower than that. So we're really pleased to be able to work with those schools and to be able to open the doors for more students to get those opportunities. The other thing that we do is that we provide, through our corporate partners, and many of them here today, companies like Commonwealth Bank and Leighton and Qantas and so on, we provide volunteering opportunities for the employees and staff from those companies to become mentors and help with career training and job opportunities and work experience, and opening up the boardrooms and the corporate employment places for these kids to be able to access those opportunities and go into those business offices and boardrooms and so on to understand how the business world works and what sort of career opportunities are available to them. So it's very much a product of what we call a private sector led but non-government approach, where we're joint venturing with government and the private sector to raise money and to help provide more opportunities for Indigenous kids. And as I said, what we'd really like to do is to grow from about 400 a year at the moment and get up to a point where we can offer around 1,000 scholarships a year for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids from all around Australia in partnership with the government and the private sector. So thank you very much for having me, Greg.
Thank you, Andrew. I think the idea of reciprocity in this both ways stuff's alive and well here. We heard Murtala speak about it, and I think in the next session, when the Lirui tourist venture is discussed, you'll see that they are too actively involved in this particular area. It is time for the government, and it's my pleasure to introduce Ken Davies, the CEO of the Department of Education and Children's Services in the Northern Territory. Ken's an educator and a long-term one, a very good friend of people in this part of the world. Work together closely on a number of projects out here, and it's a pleasure to give him a chance to say a few words today. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, for the introduction, and g'day everyone. I started off at Papunya in 1978, about 35 years ago, so it's been a long journey, but absolutely fantastic. To Yolnu elders past and present, it's a privilege to be on your country today. Thank you for having me here, and it's my job to just wrap things up here after this session and listening to the contribution of everybody. Look, I guess it's a big tapestry, and for me, to wander in as the Chief Executive of the department, I've got two principals here, really dedicated people, and Leonard and Heidi. There's an Executive Director over there as well. It's our job to try to listen to the stories that Wally and Dungal and Brewa, Mutra, Butta have told us today, and to really think about those experiences and try to think about what's going to happen into the future, because the future is the youth, and you can't but underestimate the goodwill and the vision that these elders have in relation to where they want their children to go. So what's the challenge? Well, part of where a contemporary education system has to go is to get into partnerships and to start working with people properly on the ground. It's fair to say we used to think we knew all the answers. Schools used to open their doors and we put in a good teacher, good curriculum, good school leadership, opened the door and thought everybody would come. Well, we're learning some lessons along the way that it's much, much more complex than that. And so the Yambitapa School Council, the Yambitapa group, is part of the future out here in this region, and it's a really important part. And having been there, Brewa, when we started those negotiations around the RPA and Yambitapa a long time ago, we talked a lot about mutual respect, and it's fair to say, I'll tell you, having been there at the front of that, we had some pretty testing times and they're tough negotiators. So what does it mean for a contemporary future in that space? Well, one of the things we have to do is modernise the Education Act in the Northern Territory. I've got a minister and a government that's very keen to do that. That means at the moment we talk about school councils, but we've got to be able to, in our Education Act, be able to give some sort of legislative role for education boards going forward, because we've got Yambirapa, we've got people on the Tiwi Islands and on Groote Island that are really wanting to have much more say in the future of the education and training provision for their children. The other part is that the YYF, Yothu Yindi, are about to embark on a fantastic program around life skills training, work experience, literacy and numeracy. We need to be getting in partnership with YYF and with the Garma to do that in a much more constructive and participative way, where we're also contributing resources in a more inclusive manner. So that's just my summary of it. It's a fantastic privilege as always to be out here. You know, from a person who's running the education system, one of the biggest challenges that remains, and let's call it for what it is still attendance at school, regular attendance. So if there are grandmothers and mothers who are pushing hard to get their kids to school, we need everyone's help in that regard. And it is about the future. We do need to walk in two worlds, and we need to listen as much as we think that we have got a lot to offer. We need to listen. So that's just my quick summary, Wally and Brewa, and I just want to reaffirm my department's and my staff's commitment to work with you out here to keep building the direction you've set. And if we've got some resources that we can put in that are going to really make a difference on the ground, we definitely will be there with bells on to put them in. So that's just a quick sum up, and thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, and that concludes this particular forum session, but Marcia has a few housekeeping announcements.
Okay, so we all love living in a democracy. Most people in the world don't. But one of the problems with democracy is that the politicians come and take up our time. And so because we're not cancelling of any of our sessions this afternoon that are on the program, where the afternoon tea's cancelled, but please feel free to go and get a cup of tea or a glass of water and come back. So this is a flexible classroom now. And also we'll cut a little bit. We have permission to cut into the bungle time a little bit. So you don't have to rush over there when you hear the Yadarki. Just, you know, we'll stay and listen to our very important guests. And also I believe there's another important event this afternoon. And also I want to remind you that tonight at 8:30 at the main music, I'm a bit old-fashioned, stage, yeah, the stage, our stage. We have a new stage. Did you notice how beautiful it is? At 8:30 tonight, Deborah Cheetham will be singing opera at Garma. And for those of you, obviously most of you know, but for those of you who don't, Deborah is Australia's only Aboriginal opera singer, and she has written the first and only Aboriginal opera called Pecan Summer. And her singing is so divine, you'll feel like you've gone to heaven. So don't miss it, 8:30 tonight at the music stage. So feel free to come and go, no afternoon tea, stick around, we're going to go through our agenda. Thank you.
Oh.
You need microphone on?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Are you kicking off straight away?
Well, I want to try and get everyone before they disappear because we've got this mining.
And then you're going to kick straight into the session?
Yeah, get in the session.
Straight in.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could all take your seats for the next session. The next session is the infrastructure and the economy session. So if everyone could please take their seats. I know you're doing all important networking and gossiping and talking about things. So if you'd like to do that, please sit down and listen. Tell them to sit down. What are you going to say? Yeah, sure, go on.
Attention everyone, please. Seated. Can you all listen, please? Everyone, attention. Silent, please, and come back where you are sitting. Okay? Garma is all about listening, hearing, and talking, and respecting. This is what Garma means. And please respect if someone's talking. Okay? Over here still talking. I can hear. Please. We want to give you a beautiful story. Manymak story. But I was told for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Timmy. I'd like, before we kick off the session, infrastructure and the economy, we do have an announcement to make. It's following on from Galarroy's comments today about waking up land rights, and about not only the spirituality of that, but the economics of it and about how our communities can forge and move ahead, but also in regard to Tony Abbott's comments about how we can build these communities and make them survive and get more benefits and economic outcomes for them. So I'd like to first up make the announcement of the bauxite mining agreement between Gumachi Corporation and Rio Tinto, and I'd like to call along Klaus Helms, the CEO of the Gumachi Corporation. You can clap.
Yeah, a bit of a change of venue here. This is no promises or elections, so I'm going to start off by taking you for a very short journey where we've come with the Gumachi Corporation, which, as most of you know, comes from Drimmy Head, which is where Galarrwoy is, or Gunyagara. So we started off 3 years ago by getting an idea of where we should put the corporation in business. And in those 3 years, it was decided our big drive was on community safety and education, and then development into jobs. And I'm glad to say we've achieved not only a great success in those 3 years, but we've also reduced suicide to 0 in 4 years, from being the highest in the Southern Hemisphere. It's a great achievement. I'd also say that we built our own school. We didn't wait for governments to build a school, we built our own. We've got a government teacher and it's working well. We built an enclave for the women to drop the kids off for childcare, where they're now working in our nursery and our shops, and some of our ladies are out there serving you coffee at a reduced price, I might add. I've got to get that up. We've got 55 odd people now in permanent employment with Gumatj Corporation, and all Indigenous. We've got great leadership, great board. Jawa supports the board and our operations, and Balapalo and the rest of them. Without them, we couldn't have done what we've done. And leadership and legal advice from Sean. Thank you, Sean, for your great advice. It's kept me out of jail for years now. But I guess going on to where do we go now? We have sawmills in operations. We started off with some cows on a paddock. We now have abattoirs. We have cattle. We have people working. We have meat works. We have a shop. We have achieved a great deal. Our mills are working off timber off the mine, which 4 years ago would not have been heard of, impossible to do. Now we cut the timber before the dozers come in to take the bauxite. Another great resource and a great employment opportunity for Indigenous people. But, you know, we looked at and said, well, we've achieved so much in 3 years, where do we take the next plateau? And without throwing dispersions on land rights or on Northern Land Councils or on government's inability to make decisions for communities, we took a little bit of the bull by the horns. We negotiated directly with the mining company. We also dealt with the Northern Land Council, in fairness, directly. And what we've achieved now is the ability to announce today a tremendous opportunity where the Indigenous people not only get to say what happens on their own land, they get to sell their own bauxite back to a mining company. And that, for us, is a great deal. So the plan is we'll be doing our own exploration, and then we'll be doing our own mining eventually, and we will be selling it back to the mining companies as landowners, as a company, with their own rights to do so. And that's a landmark achievement for us, considering what's happened over the years. So as CEO of Gumatj, I can say that the next 5 or 6 years is well planned ahead of us. We're going to grow. Where our target is 150 to 200 direct employees on contract to use this facility as one of the biggest mining training schools to get the Indigenous people back to control their own land by actually running their own mining companies rather than for a mining company. And that's a great effort. So, now, as I said, without people like Jawa, it's impossible to do. You've got to have good leadership, you've got to have good strength. The CEO, all I do is push the company along, but you need that board support, you need the education, and you need a new line of young kids coming through. Education is important, but understanding business is even more important, and understanding politics and how to work with politicians is even of great importance. I could go on for days, but I haven't got days, I've got half an hour. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Ryan, the General Manager of Rio here on site. Now, Ryan's only new to the game, but he's brought his family up and he intends to dig some soil in here and stay here, which is a good sign because I've seen 14 site managers so far. This one might stay. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, everyone. As Klaus said, I've been here on country now for just 3 months, and interesting time for me, particularly given my third-born daughter is expected in about 3 days. So very, very special time for us at the moment. As Klaus has just said, the negotiations to get to this point today has taken some time. So really, from my business's perspective, really want to thank the Yolngu people and the Gumatj Corporation for their patience over that time. But I think where we're at now is a tremendous place. Back in May 2011, we signed an historic agreement, the Traditional Owners Agreement between Gove and the Yolngu people. And a cornerstone commitment of that agreement was around establishing and helping establish the independent economic prosperity of the Yolngu people. I think what Klaus has just announced with the setup and moving forward of, and hopefully the establishment of a viable, sustainable mining operation under Gumatj is the right way forward. And really what was behind what we wanted to achieve in our agreement that we set out 2 years ago. So it's with my pleasure that our company can offer the expertise, work together as a partnership, and help the Gumatch Corporation set up their independent mining corporation and then set up a commercial agreement so that they can then sell the bauxite to us so that we can turn into alumina. So very looking forward to working forward and moving forward together. So thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Klaus. Thanks for that, Ryan, and also Jawa as well, and the Deputy Chairman of the Gumatch Corporation. When we're talking about, waking up land rights, when we're talking about building Indigenous communities, this is the very thing we're talking about. It's not only just having people come onto country and to do business, whether that be mining or other business. It's about the Yolngu. It's also about the Aboriginal people actually taking up that challenge and running those businesses themselves, building that business knowledge, building that political knowledge that we need to have. And so I could not echo Klaus's words more better. So congratulations, fellas. You can give him another clap if you want to. There are a few changes to our presentation this afternoon. If you look at your book, your notebook, the Innovation in Art and Multimedia has been moved to Sunday at 9 a.m. at the Garpang Gallery, but otherwise everything else is as per the program. First of all, I'd like to the Lowy Literary Tourism and the Cultural Tourism Master Plan. We have Timmy here, the founder and the chairman, and also John Morse, the former CEO of Tourism Australia and advisor to the tourism plan. So I'd call on you, Timmy, if you want to talk. So.
Yo, ngadilinga bukorupan olmana Dr. Yunupinguna knowledge nga raga nango dalaj dango yo warakaram pungai ngone dalaj maipa. Ladies and gentlemen, I was told to talk 5 minutes maybe. I'm a good storyteller. Well, I guess I'm a founder of Little Yolngu Tourism Corporation. And my surname is Braronga, and it's a part of Gumatch. And I am a Gumatch person, standing here and honoring the ancestors, the leaders that is gone, acknowledging the great man that was my teacher and also my headmaster, Mr. Dr. Yunupingu. I would not stand here because of him. And all my grandmothers are gone. I'm standing here proud. I'm a young Gumatch man that have a vision and dream to make Northern Territory or other communities, and also in the corporate world. I have achieved nearly 10 or 20 years in my career. I was the first Indigenous man to work in Garma, doing tourism, with the other Ngapigi or white men's. I had learned in the hills because of my language. I have established something that is going to be really special, creating economy in this country, especially in Arnhem Land. Literally, it means layers and layers and layers of information. Literally is actually significant names for Yolngu people. It is also sacred names. It's in the layers of philosophy of indigenous knowledge. You find literally everywhere, but you need is to understand. We had actually created something special to Yolngu people. Literally actually doesn't own it, but the homelands own the Literally. I actually helped them to create economy. I helped them to make Aboriginal people to have a business. This is about telling Aboriginal people rights. It's about education. It's about learning and building, investment in you. What I'm saying you is for Indigenous people. We have suffered for many years. Literally, it talks about to work with corporate world, to work with government, federal and territory. We have established something that is really special. We have created something that is you and I can understand. 96 billion tourism industry in this country. We saw missing that opportunities. This is the time. I am standing here proud because I have to see Aboriginal people proud. I want to see Aboriginal people investing in their own businesses. Wake up in the morning, head to the job. I have seen a dominant world in the career that I was understanding. I have seen that what Yolngu people need and help. We need trainings. We need education. But there is a true education, guys. There's true curriculum in this country. There is Yolngu curriculum. And if you want to learn Yolngu curriculum, you have to come to Literally. You have to learn the Yolngu curriculum. It's not written, it's in you. Because this is what I'm trying to do. I will not be a leader on my rights. I'm a person that can work with people. I will never be a leader. I will be always leader to my kids and my family. I have created something special. I have taken to the interstates. I have talked to CEOs. I have sat with the people that have money. I have educated through bilingual. I have 2 teachers there. I have also did my through Darwin, Charles University, Indigenous Knowledge, Masters of Indigenous Knowledge for 6 years. I'm still a young man. But what I want to show you, that little Yolngu tourism, it will be grown. I want you to help us. This is employment and training and educated by you to us. There's 95% schools are saying we want to learn indigenous curriculums. I have to cry. How come black man crying with a white man? I have seen the pain. We had a problems. They have a problems. But what I'm trying to say is life-changing people. I did a documentary with Kathy Freeman, Deborah Malman, Jeff Dixon from the Congress. from the Commonwealth Bank, CEO. People like that, it's very unique. Because I want you to understand, we're not talking about white men talking about black men. We can talk about you. This is a case. No more talking about black people, no more. It's gone. This is what Garma means. It's about you want to help us. Because tourism is the friendly tourism. I just love it. Guys, I just love it. Because we're not strangers, you and I. I have to tell the white friends that we have never seen or heard about strangers. White people taught us what stranger means. White people actually tell you what to do. This is not about that. We need to bring economy here. It's not about, it's a friendly tourism where you can sit with us. It's not about working every day. In the morning you have a big trucks. It's not about killing the environment. It's not about that. Ladies and gentlemen, I got more stories, but I'd like to introduce this great guy here. He's going to tell you about what he actually saw. And this story is amazing. So what we call in our trip is the greatest. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
My name's Connor Bowden. I'm son of Denise and Sean, and I'm here with the Scotch and the other boys from Melbourne, from the schools, and we've been travelling around with Jawa for about a week now, and we've learnt so much stuff from him. He's taught us all about the Yolngu culture, a bit of Yolngu mata, and just a couple dances. He's he's really a true role model to a lot of the boys here, and we all know when we leave we're all going to miss him, and he's just a champ. He took us out to his homeland, which is called Bawaka. Took us and he taught us our skin names and the two different moieties, which is Yiricha and Doa. I'm a Yiricha and a Yiricha too. And he taught us the difference between them, and that there has to be a balance between Yiricha and Doa. And you can't choose whether you want to be a Yiricha or a Doa. You're just given, and that you need to experience the whole, experience everything to find out whether you are Yiricha or Doa. And we went out to other places like Bukadao and Brand, where Dr. Yunupinga wrote the song Treaty. And we experienced everything with them. But Jawa, he's the man. He taught us. He's taught us probably more than anyone could teach me. Anyone could teach me. I could teach myself reading a book in a year. He's taught me more than a whole library full of books about Yolngu would teach me. Just by going out and experiencing just hands-on everything, how they're living, how everyone's speaking, and it's something you have to experience to know. Well, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce John Morse. John Morse was the CEO for Australian Tourism in the past. Actually, first I met John Morse in, I think it was on Perth, where I used to work with Youth in the Foundation. I used to go out and promote with Dr. Yunupingu, and I was actually a speaker because he was actually teaching me how to teach about standing as a young person and talk about Garma. And next minute I saw this man here. I thought he was an Aboriginal man, sorry. And I thought, who is this guy? He's got a pretty big sound, and who is it? And I was sitting with Dr. Yunupingu, and he told me, I don't know, he turned around and said to me, this is how you can understand, because white men can talk ever they want, They have to talk unless you tell them your time is off. So anyway, nearly 10 or 10 years now, John Morse, 12 years. Now John actually pretty, also we went together and journey and learn about the dominant world. When I'm in Sydney, he said, look, time is on, we have to go to Commonwealth Bank, have a meeting with them, or there's a contest, and I didn't actually, it's not my culture, it's not my way, but I have to be, when I'm in Sydney or other states. But ladies and gentlemen, John Morse.
When we first started this project, I said to this extraordinary project that I'm going to talk about for a few minutes, I said to Joa, you and I are going to fight a lot. And we do. But his responsibility is to show me the world of the Yolngu people, and my responsibility is to show him the world of the Balanda people. And what we are coming to over many, many years is a much greater understanding of each other's culture, and that helps Java and helps me. And the other thing I want to say before I start, where's that young man? He's gone. He and what he said is the reason that I am so bloody passionate about this thing called tourism, because it's not about tourism, it's about connection between people. And the way he stood up, and he was really nervous, and he wrote some things on his wrist, but I said to him, just speak from your heart, and he did. And that's why I'm in this business. Again, before I start, I don't know whether I'm out of line here or whether this is going to be done in a different way, but this is I think it's my 8th Garma. And I've been coming here for many years, and I just want to say to Denise and to your team, a really sincere congratulations on the extraordinary improvements to the Garma site, which have made everybody say so much more comfortable. I had a hot shower this morning, yay! Well done, well done. What you've achieved in under 2 years is just quite extraordinary, so congratulations, really, I mean that. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Aboriginal land, on Yolngu land. I would like to pay my respects to elders, past and present, both here and right across Australia. Could I ask you all just to turn your heads to the right and look at that beautiful escarpment you see out there and the ocean? That is Arnhem Land. What you see is the tip, not of an iceberg. It's the tip of a place that I have come to know deeply and to love deeply and think is the most beautiful place on the planet. And I have been everywhere on the planet. And the reason I think it is the most beautiful place on the planet is because of, yes, the extraordinary beaches and the palm trees and the landscape and the hills and the sand dunes and the islands and the coral cays and the fish and the wildlife, even the buffaloes. But it's something much, much deeper than that, that after many years I'm really just starting to understand. And the more I understand, the more I know that I still have much more to learn. And it is about the people and their culture and their place in this beautiful place called Arnhem Land. And the thing that I keep thinking of is that nowhere else in the world can you find this. And the fact that we're all here, sitting here today, experiencing this culture, I think is a great privilege from where, it doesn't matter from wherever you come. I want you now to cast your minds forward 20 years and imagine a series of small, lovely camps right across Arnhem Land, maybe 50, maybe more, of people working across Arnhem Land in tourism, maybe 1,000, maybe 1,500. That is not my vision, that is Jawa's vision. And that's something that we have been talking about for many, many years, sitting here on the escarpment. And 3 years ago, Jawa set up Luriwi Yolnu Tourism Aboriginal Corporation because he really wanted to do something to achieve that vision for his family, for Gumach, but for all Yolnu people in Arnhem Land. And just over 1 year ago, after many hours and weeks of planning and thinking, Timmy asked me to go to Canberra to talk to the government about supporting the bold vision. And I went to see the Department of Tourism in Canberra, and I talked to them about what we call the Yolnu Cultural Tourism Master Plan. And Timmy asked me to give the government a message and said, we need your support to get this going. We need your support, but we don't want your control. We don't want the government to run this. Yolnu will run this for Yolnu people. And it was a very strong message I gave to the government, and I had Timmy's permission to do it. And do you know what the people, very senior people in the Department of Energy, Resources and Tourism said to me? They said, we love it. And if you can get a submission in 3 weeks, we'll give you $1 million. And I said, what's the catch? So they said, you have to raise $1 million from the private sector in 3 weeks. Do you know, we got to $825,000 in 3 weeks. And I went back to the government. When I left that office in Canberra, on a cold winter's day in June, 66 years of age, grey hair, as you can see, I did something I've never done before, I felt terribly embarrassed about, and I'll never do again. I danced down the streets of Canberra. I danced with joy at this positive reception from the government. And a year later, it's been a crazy, insane whirlwind of... I'm sorry I'm laughing because I just had a vision of taking Timmy in Sydney in another office tower to his 8th meeting for the day, and he said, I can't do any more, I've had enough. I said, you have to come to one last meeting, and in the end he did. But we had a little bargy there about that. But it's been a crazy ride, it's been a sensational ride, and this is just the start of it. This, as Timmy said, is about a new economy for Arnhem Land. It's about that, but it is about so much more than a new economy. It's about self-respect. It's about dignity. It's about empowerment. It's about, as Noel Pearson said, taking responsibility. It's about connection. It's about young people. It's about reconciliation. It's about empowerment. And it's about what has been so long denied the Yolnu people of Arnhem Land, justice. Cultural tourism is not the panacea for the economic development and empowerment of Yolnu people. It is one stream only, but it's a very, very important stream. And all these words that I'm saying to you are words that I have heard back from Yolnu people. Last year, Timmy and I and a few other people, we did a huge community consultation tour right around Arnhem Land, and the message was so strong and so consistent that this is what Yolngu people want to do, but their way, a new way. I hasten to add, because some people, you say the word tourism, they get visions of busloads of people with bright-coloured shirts and cameras and all sorts of nasty things come into mind. No, 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 never, never, never. This is not about that. There is a new form of tourism emerging globally, ladies and gentlemen, and it's called responsible tourism, or it's called conscious tourism. And it's all those people around the world who want to connect with the cultures that they visit, the people they visit, the places they visit, leave a very, very low impact. And very much importantly for the people in the Western world who, as we all know, many have lost contact with nature, they've lost contact with themselves. It's also about connection with themselves. And the one word that I hear year after year, time after time, in all the feedback we get, the one word that comes through more than any other from Bullanda people who visit the homelands, who spend some time with Timmy, or go to Bukadal, or Brang Brang, or Banyala, or wherever they go, the one word we hear more than any other is life-changing. And it's a word that's never, ever said lightly by anybody. I just want to share with you a few of the things that have happened in this crazy 12 months. I had to leave Sydney and go and live in the bush just to get rid of my stress. No, not really. The first thing we did was to form an advisory panel of people who could help guide us, much like Timmy was on the expert panel for constitutional reform and still is. We thought we needed an advisory panel of really high-powered, influential Australians. The first person we spoke to was Jeff Dixon, the former CEO of Qantas. He agreed instantly. The second person, an amazing woman, Professor Andrea Hull from Melbourne University, said yes without hesitation. Jane Madden, the former head of tourism for the Department of Tourism in Canberra, yes without hesitation. Bill Wright, one of the leading tourism people in this country, all these people said yes, 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 and yes. And we got the grant of $825,000 from the government. We have secured in the first 12 months 12 corporate partners, and I can believe that that corporate Australia is so willing to help. Organisations, many of whom are here today, like the fabulous team from Qantas, who've been so supportive of everything we're doing. Pacific Aluminium. Sorry? Okay. Rio Tinto have been a great supporter and are a great supporter. Gilbert and Tobin, I don't know whether any of them are here, but Gilbert and Tobin are doing all our legal work. The Jarwin organisation has been absolutely sensational in providing us with mentors. Tourism Australia, many, many more organisations. We're always seeking more, but we have a really good base of skills right across a broad range of activities. We have held a conference, 120 Yolngu people there at the start in Nhulunbuy last year, 120 at the finish. Mulwat conference. We've done community consultations. We're working currently with 22 different homelands, and this is only just the beginning. We have done a major risk management strategy up here with the board of Lirui, all Yolngu people. I thought, oh, I'm going to be so bored, risk management. Is Dungal here? Dungal, one of the directors, said, we want to do risk management, not the way you white fellas do it in Sydney or Melbourne. We want to do it based on our value system, our culture. So the whole risk management strategy has been based on Yolngu principles of value. We're doing record business at the moment. In the last three months, we've had 20 tours, 300 people. Corporates, Commonwealth Bank are here, great supporters. Telstra, great supporters. The school groups that you've heard about. We're developing tours for the multi-tours for the homelands, women's tours, arts tours, special interest tours, the list goes on and on. This is the most ambitious project I've been involved in my life, and I've done a few, I can tell you. If you want to follow us, we're on Facebook. I've got some cards where you can have a look at the Lirui website. We are establishing a training academy at the moment, with Havana Trading. We had a major presence at the Sydney Opera House at the Message Sticks Festival last year. Eunice was there with us. And this is just the start. I am so excited about this, and I'm in such a privileged space that I am able, because of my career and my life, to be able to commit the rest of my life, my working life, to working with Jawa Barawinga and the team at Lirui to help realise what I think the Yolu have developed is an extraordinary vision for the future of their people. Thank you.
Thanks for that, John. I do apologise we have to rush through these things because, quite frankly, this session was supposed to be 12 p.m. today, so you can imagine how far we are behind schedule. The next part is in the innovation on infrastructure. The speakers for that will be, if Bill Lawson's in the audience, please turn up. If not, are you there? Good on you, Bill. The General Manager of Corporate Social Responsibility for Sinclair Knight Mertz, and Michael Bissell, the Principal for Indigenous Environment and Water Services for GHD Proprietary Limited. So, Bill, I'd like to toss you on first. Thank you.
Thanks, Warren. I'd like to pay my respects to the Yolngu people, elders past and present, and thank them very much for the welcome here. It's a real privilege. It's been a place I've been going to get for a lot of years and finally got here. So to Marcia, I don't know whether she's here or not, but thank you very much for the opportunity. I'd like to lead off with a little bit of discussion about physical infrastructure, and I guess it's, there's Marcia, it's a pretty, in a sense, boring subject. And, I mean, we are engineers when all's said and done, so I guess you stand by to get bored. The essence of what this covers, though, is so often unseen. If you think about the power, the telecommunications, the water, the sewerage, there's not much you see. I guess with the roads and the buildings you see. But the elements that we take so much for granted are so often, if you like, not in the front of our minds. Now, in terms of innovation, it's interesting to me to think that, well, thinking about this, well, what would be innovative based on my experience in terms of the provision of physical infrastructure to Indigenous communities as opposed to Australian communities as a whole? And the thing that I think that would be most innovative would be some consultation. I have seen so many times, stuff done that is not fit for purpose. The provision of infrastructure at huge cost, because this is a very expensive game, particularly if it's out of sight, it's very expensive because you've got to dig a hole and put it in there and cover it up again. And the essence of that is so often, in my view, and this is a personal view, but I've seen it a few times, is the application of white fella specifications and expectations to what black fellas they think want. And there's a great difficulty in this in the sense that if you're not being told what they want, well, how are you going to give them, whether they be white, black, brindle, doesn't matter, how are you going to give them what they want? So we need to hear. And it is so often the case that specifications are standardised. And if we're going to build a house, yeah, okay, it's going to have 3 bedrooms and a toilet and a bathroom and the like. No, they say when it's half built. No, we don't want any bedrooms. We want 2 toilets. We want a large communal kitchen. We want verandas all around. I'll give you the tip. That does not fit with specifications that are so often enshrined in bureaucratic processes at state, territory and federal levels. And we are so often obliged to provide that sort of infrastructure. So if you want to know about innovation in that, in my view, it's got a lot to do with talking to people about what they want. Now, that's a big challenge because so often it's paid for by taxation revenues. And so it sits in a bureaucratic place. So it is a massive challenge to all of us to make physical infrastructure more appropriate. The second thing that I wanted to touch on, and then I'll be quiet, is the issue of documentation and in a contractual sense, and we live in that world. And I often refer to it as the stroke of the draftsman's pen or the draft person's pen. Once something is on a drawing or in a specification, and then it becomes incorporated into a contract. And it's so boring checking drawings and hundreds of pages of specification, but once it's in there and it's signed into a contract, well, mate, you're going to cop it. That's what you're going to get, because if you don't like it halfway through and you want to change it, well, guess what? It's going to cost you more money. Oftentimes, it just doesn't get changed. So things get half built and people realise what they're getting and say, no, that's not quite what I thought I was going to get. Well, it is, because here's the contract and it's going to cost more money to change it. So we have to be very diligent and quite assiduous in our attempts to set documentation up as being fit for purpose. So they're the two things that I particularly wanted to share with you based upon 43 years of doing this sort of stuff of a faceless person in the background. So to summarise, to repeat, I would say innovation in this space has got everything to do with talking to the people, the person who are going to use this thing that is going to be built. And secondly, to apply ourselves at that boring task, at that boring time of checking drawings and going through specifications where it's just page after page after page, but before we lock it into contracts that we then all become slaves to. Thank you.
Yeah, Michael Bissell of the GHD Proprietary Limited.
Thank you, Warren. Could I acknowledge the traditional owners, the Yolngu people and the Coolmatch clan of the land we're on. I have a larrikitch at home that tells the story of a law creation site out there in Blue Mud Bay. And it's a story that is well over 10,000 years old, because it's a story about when that land out there was not underwater, which means it's passed down orally from before the last ice age, which is 12,000 years ago. And I see it in my lounge room, and it reminds me that we're amongst the oldest cultures on the planet, and it's good to be up here in country. I'm just going to talk about, we're talking about innovations in infrastructure. So something that's just been done for the Council of Australian Governments is the Remote Indigenous Infrastructure Policy Framework. The background to it is that Infrastructure Australia was set up 5 years ago to address all of Australia's economic infrastructure challenges. They have an annual budget well into the tens of billions, and the process that they go through is any national significant infrastructure, which is a project over 100 mil, must go through the Infrastructure Australia process. Their process is that a jurisdiction applies, the Infrastructure Australia Secretariat assesses that application, makes a recommendation to the Infrastructure Australia Council, which is 6 private sector people, 6 public sector people. They assess that application and then they make a recommendation to the Minister for funding. So this is their 2014 or 13 report to COAG. It's got over 60 projects on the national priority list. That report is sitting on a couple of tables over near the merchandise stall. There's probably a few left. The last budget, they were allocated $24.5 billion to deliver those. Over the last 5 years, all jurisdictions from around Australia have put up large applications for essential infrastructure in remote Indigenous communities. So Power and Water Corp in the Northern Territory, they put in an application for $500 million over 5 years to deliver power and water in 72 communities. They were knocked back because there's no fit-for-purpose, easy-to-use, and reputable process to assess how to deliver, fund and maintain economic infrastructure and essential infrastructure in remote communities. One thing that Infrastructure Australia does very well is they have a very robust process, and the first thing they start off with is, what is the problem? You must define the problem. There are a lot of solutions out there that are running around looking for a problem. So they sit down and go through it. when we started this project, we said, okay, what's the problem? So we went around and did a lot of talking, a lot of listening. I just want to go through 6 areas that we thought were part of the problem. Equality of essential infrastructure between remote, discrete Indigenous communities and other similar communities of a similar size and location. A very thorough, well-planned, well-delivered audit, national audit across 72 Aboriginal communities from 2011-12 showed that of a base level standard, discrete Aboriginal communities get 7% of the service of similar non-Aboriginal communities of a similar size and location. For the reliability of service, they get 8% of the delivery. Let's just stop and pause on that, eh? 8% of the delivery for the reliability of power and water. So if you're at home, you're in an urban environment, you have 10 showers a week. If you're in a remote Indigenous community, you can rely on less than 1 per week. Okay, that was 72 communities that were assessed, and that was what was found. I'd suggest that's a bit of a problem. Bang for buck. There's a phenomenal amount of investment that goes on in remote Indigenous communities. We've talked about that. We've heard the last couple of days of what the size of that is. Approximately 60% of that investment actually hits the ground in capital expenditure. The operations and maintenance is not invested in. It then comes out of existing budgets that can be found and what happens and what goes on. So 2 examples. There are 2 very significant solar arrays in 2 communities in the NT. They are parabolic dishes, a bunch of them. They both cost within the vicinity of $10 million to deliver. They both sit there, not hooked up, not operating. It's just fantastic. 20 million sitting there, not being used. So bang for buck's a real issue. Leadership. This has been touched on a lot, but I just want to quote Peter Shergold. Most people will know Peter Shergold here, but he put an article in the paper about his experience over his last couple of decades in this space. And he said, after 2 decades, the scale of relative disadvantage suffered by Indigenous Australians remained as intractable as ever, and I can think of no failure in public policy that has such profound consequences. Leadership, big question mark over that. Planning. There are no national standards for essential infrastructure, services and or reliability in remote Indigenous communities, none. In Western Australia, there are regulatory standards of what you must deliver, when and how for urban environments. Western Australia's got a pretty big remote infrastructure space and they have no standards that apply in that environment. Much of the essential infrastructure in remote communities is at or beyond end of life. It was delivered over the last 30 or 40 years. There's not a lot being invested in that space. There are very large communities of more than 1,000 people across the top of Australia that have less than 2 years of known water left. This is bore water. How are we going to manage that? Policy and practice. This is good policy. All jurisdictions in Australia have some policy that says we will try as governments to give business to Aboriginal organisations. In May 2011, the Commonwealth Department of Finance and Regulation set up the Indigenous Exemptions Policy. It means that any Aboriginal business does not have to go through the normal Commonwealth Government procurement policies to win a contract. Not one contract has been issued by the Commonwealth Government under that policy in over 2 years to an Aboriginal business. In the Northern Territory, there have been 3 contracts. There's 2 that have been issued on Groote Eylandt and there's 1 issued in Wadeye. I just want to go through this for a sec. So there's a lot of stuff, you heard yesterday of community empowerment and those sort of things. So the contracts that have been let on Groote Eylandt, one was $40 million to build a road between the 2 communities and another was $18 million to build an urban subdivision. The normal process would have been NT government put it out to tender, a normal civil construction company would have applied, won that contract, Aboriginal people would have stood around, maybe got a little bit of employment and not got a lot out of that. What's happened is that Aboriginal business has received $58 million. They are now responsible for delivering that infrastructure. They have the leadership and the capacity to do that. They sat down with government and said, look, we don't have cost controllers, we don't have estimators, we don't have surveyors. We are going to run into some challenges here. Can we work out how to do that? The government lined them up with a major civil construction firm out of Darwin and said, okay, if you need any support, you can go to them, but it's your responsibility to deliver that. Option A is the status quo, not a lot going on. Option B is the delivery of that procurement process, and it will deliver fantastic outcomes. There is not a better example of empowerment, apart from what was spoken about here by Klaus earlier on in with the mining. That's another brilliant example. But that is the model for Australia. Australia spends billions of dollars every year on essential infrastructure. There is a fantastic opportunity to change that and make that work. Let's just clearly touch on the last bit, outcomes. We're not going to close the gap. We're not going to grow Indigenous advantage if we don't deliver effective funding and delivery and maintenance of essential infrastructure. There are millions upon millions of dollars of government investment in housing, schools, community centres, arts centres, health clinics that cannot be delivered across remote Australia because they do not have the load capacity of power and water. They have to work through that. It's a very significant issue, very significant barrier. So that was us working through the process and understanding what the problems were. We then set about writing the Remote Indigenous Infrastructure Policy Framework and making decisions under that. The key areas of reform are governance and a principled approach. So the 4 principles of the framework say you must address tenure. Let's understand that 80% of the Australian continent above the Tropic of Capricorn is owned or managed by Aboriginal people. There's a lot of essential infrastructure to be delivered there, and tenure must be resolved. Community planning and community master plans. You need to know where your residential environment is, where your industrial environment is, where the easements are. You can't go and build a water plant where you expect young Aboriginal men to work on women's country. There must be a cultural overlay over a community master plan. There's no example of that across the country at the moment. You must have asset governance. Sounds very simple. You need to know who owns the asset, who manages it and who maintains it. That just does not exist. There is a phenomenal opportunity for the delivery of essential infrastructure in remote communities to be a wealth creator. And wealth creation is a broad term. It's cultural, it's language, it's identity, it's economic, it's social, it's environmental. Understand it in the very broadest of terms. The Power and Water Corporation in the Northern Territory, their Indigenous Essential Services, they have essential service operators. They have 140 across the territory. 50 of those are Aboriginal people supporting their remote operations. That's brilliant, it's fantastic. It's a great outcome, and it's the only good example in the country of where essential infrastructure delivery has been used for employment and enterprise. So we did this phenomenal reform. It was signed off by the Infrastructure Australia Council. It's supported by all the jurisdictions. It's supported by industry, government, Aboriginal leadership. The first project considered under it was an upgrade to the APY Lands Road in South Australia. That was recently provided with $106 million in the latest Commonwealth budget. The second project considered under it was an upgrade to the Tanami Road in the Northern Territory. It's a $306 million project. It was assessed by the Secretariat of the Infrastructure Australia. It was endorsed by the Infrastructure Australia Council for funding, and it currently sits with the Minister to go through their processes. That project will save the mining industry $9 million per year. So the companies up there that operate in the Tanami region, they get charged the surcharge of 5 cents per litre on fuel. One of the companies uses 52 million litres per year, just for the delivery. If you want to float a truck or anything out there, a piece of machinery, it'll take you 3 days to drive from the Stewart Highway turnoff, 500 kilometres to the Granites, because you've got to drive at 8 kilometres an hour. The safety, there's been a lot of fatalities, a lot of accidents. Those mining companies spend over $1 million a year just addressing safety issues of tourists. Some tourist opportunities, very big issue. There are 3,500 people that live in that catchment, nearly all Aboriginal. If a third of the adults that are currently unemployed get gainful employment through that project, it'll save the Commonwealth Government $24.8 million per year. There's just a very simple issue there. The policy framework is very important reform. It's delivered results already. There are some things that we still need to do with it. I want to have a look at an example of the resources sector over the last 10 years, what they started with and where they've gone, because I think it'll be very instructive for the opportunity to look 10 years ahead and see where we want to be. What are the drivers of wealth creation in remote Aboriginal communities? There's individual effort, what people are doing like Timmy and getting out and chasing a dream and making it happen. There's the resource sector, big player, big opportunities, and there's essential infrastructure. Not a lot is happening in that space. The resource sector 10 years ago, one company doing okay, employment, enterprise. Since then, the resource sector has done a lot. They established an Indigenous relations strategic framework and engagement strategy. They did a values statement, they did an Indigenous relations research project. They helped set up the Aboriginal enterprises in mining, exploration and energy. Professor Mick Dodson over there set up a leadership dialogue between the Aboriginal leadership and the mining industry leadership. Professor Marcia Langton was involved, a lot of people in this room have been involved in that process. In the 10 years since that reform was commenced, the mining industry is now by far the largest employer of Aboriginal people in Australia, and Aboriginal companies have done $4 billion worth of business in 10 years with the mining industry. That opportunity exists for essential infrastructure, and we need to continue with some governance reforms and to get that, and that's the next conversation that we'll be having along the framework. But the key message is that this forum is about partnerships and it's about reconciliation and it's about prosperity. And the successful funding and delivery and maintenance of essential infrastructure is the most significant opportunity for wealth creation in remote Indigenous communities, and it's something that is doable. It is not a difficult thing. I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Very thought-provoking. In the last presentation, if we have Heath Nelson, the Manager for Aboriginal Business Development for Fortescue's Metals Group, and Raylene Button, the MK Proprietary Limited, who has contracts with FMG. Raylene here? Yes. Come in. Okay. Okay, you can start. Good on you, Heath.
Thanks, Warren. Firstly, pay my respects to the Yolngu people, to the elders past and present. Look, I've got a 7-minute video that will play that just sort of outlines what our Building Opportunities program is all about. You'll hear it from them, what it means about Aboriginal people getting involved with businesses with Fortescue. Fortescue Metals is an iron ore company over in Pilbara in WA, formed by Andrew Forrest 10 years ago. Started mining 5 years ago. We now mine about 100 million tonnes per annum of iron ore. We also work with 7 native title groups that we have land access agreements with. We employ 461 Aboriginal people at an average of 12.4% of our workforce. Our contractors employ a further 528 Aboriginal people. So through our operations, there's about 1,000 Aboriginal people that work across Fortescue. So 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, Fortescue had done about $130 million in contracts with Aboriginal businesses. December 2011, I actually put a proposal through to our CEO and to the board to award $1 billion worth of contracts by the end of 2013. And last week, we actually did that. So we actually did it 6 months ahead of schedule. Right now, we've awarded $1.25 billion in contracts to Aboriginal businesses sort of over the last 3 years. The real message, the real key to that I found is actually the real commitment. It was the real commitment with the company. They didn't just put a line in the sand, they actually dug a trench and actually said, you know, we're going to make a really bold statement here. We're going to get the whole company driven towards that. And that's the only way that it actually worked. It sort of worked through the company commitment. It worked through us working with our native title groups to find out what they wanted to do. Then it's my job to go through the business and actually create those opportunities. It was actually about opening the doors from the inside and allowing them the opportunity to come through. And the DVD you're going to see is actually from some of our Aboriginal owners, and just you'll see the emotion and you'll see how much it actually means to them to actually be in business.
Wealth creation happens when people take risks. and go into the marketplace with a business proposition, and if they're successful, they can do very well. So for native title groups, the best chance of creating a future, an economic future for their people, is to create businesses.
Most of our life we've worked for someone else. Now it's the opportunities are there for us to work for ourselves and for our fellow Aboriginal contractors, you know, who are out there. And nothing gives me more pride than to go and work for another Aboriginal contractor or our own contracting companies.
A statistic that not a lot of people know is that Aboriginal businesses employ between 8 to 10 times more Aboriginal people than non-Aboriginal businesses. So an Aboriginal business is an Aboriginal employment multiplier.
So we all hope that, we start breaking that cycle of welfare dependency, of alcoholism. We want our kids and our kids' kids to become engineers and managers of some of these places.
Most of my family was on Centrelink payments. I mean, you're just living from one paycheck to another, you know? You get tired of just waiting for the royalties every year, so our family decided to get out and have a go and do our business. So it just started from an idea and it's come this far now.
We took little steps at a time in the beginning, about 3-4 years ago, and now we're up to where we are, and now we're going to try and bring all the kids in there and try and lead them the right way, more or less. Get them away from welfare and all that, and try and get them to be independent, like work-wise. And there's a golden opportunity at the mine for them to start apprenticeships and work in general.
When we managed to get FMG to say, look, we want you to be part of our story, we've got this brilliant opportunity, but first and foremost you've got to prove yourself. They said, look, here's the pathway that you must follow, and if you need assistance in that process, please let us know. So FMG basically have eliminated the glass ceiling that we find when we deal with some other companies.
When we got told that we were awarded this contract, it took me some time for it to sink in. And I was driving home and it just dawned on me that, I've been given this opportunity. I actually rang my mum and said, Mum, for the first time in my life, I'm so proud of myself. She says, what's wrong with you? I said, she's got 5 kids. And four of the kids have all got 2 trade backgrounds, except for me. So here I am with no trade background, with my own contract, running my own company. When I rang the other ladies up, they was just in tears because what this can do also, not just for themselves, but for their family and extended family is just undescribable, just awesome.
It's a personal thing. It's just to show that anyone can do it. Indigenous people can do it as well as non-Indigenous people. I mean, there's always bad things said about it. I don't go into too much details, but there's always negative things. And now this is one of the biggest positive things you can actually put out there.
I had some people walk up to myself and the other ladies involved with REMS, and they said, thank you very much. I said, what do you mean? She said, you're our role model. If you can do it, we can. So they're actually out there forming their own alliances with companies. So it's awesome.
There was a number of people who were working for us who'd been on CDP or unemployed, so they're on about $9,000 a year, and now on between $100,000 and $140,000. To see the smiles on their faces because Christmas is coming up. The wife's happy, kids are happy. There's presents on the Christmas tree. There's plenty of food in the fridge. All the bills are paid. It was a life-changing moment for them. I think it was a life-changing moment for me as well to realise that, if you want something significant and worthwhile to happen, there's a hell of a lot of work involved, but if you stick at it, the rewards are there.
The returns to the native title groups are enormous because not only do their children get the opportunities of jobs, but they also share in the profits of the companies, and it gives people business experience so that more people can go and create a business. When people are able to participate in the economy in the same way that other Australians do, then their future generations are guaranteed a reasonable standard of living.
We've got 100 staff all up. That includes back end and front end, and our Indigenous employment rates, I think last time I checked it was about 67%. And I was told by some that it was impossible, and it's impossible with that attitude. So I think this gets back to the $1 billion dollars opportunity. It is about attitude. If you say that is the goal, then you need to do everything possible to achieve that. So on my side, it was getting the Indigenous employment rate over 50%. On FMG's side, it was about delivering the $1 billion worth of contracts to Indigenous contractors, and the two have basically complemented each other. As we keep getting the work, we can then start bringing on more Indigenous workers. Well, $1 billion has got to be real, right? So you can talk about whatever you want, and there's a number of people out there who've got various comments to make about FMG in relation to its Indigenous engagement. But as far as I can see, in 3 years they've given out more contracts than most of the other companies in Australia combined. So proof's in the pudding.
A really key component of the Billion Opportunities program is the opportunities. It's not the billion. It's not the $1 billion. It's the opportunity. Got to create the opportunity for them to be able to get in there and actually prove themselves. And as I said to them, you'll know what you have to do to succeed, but you must deliver. This is business, and you've got to deliver.
I'd like to see 1 billion opportunities adopted Australia-wide. I think FMG's come up with a great model. What this model does is set out the good business principles that other corporations can adopt in their business relationships with Indigenous communities. And it's not just about employing people, although that's a very worthwhile goal. It's also about making sure that Aboriginal businesses are treated on merit, but also at the same time not marginalised by the very onerous and necessarily onerous processes that are involved in tendering.
Being born, in the Pilbara, born and bred in the Pilbara, to get into a mining company was absolutely shocking until FMG's come along and it's just opened doors for training, employment for people, right across Australia, more or less. It's amazing. And Andrew Forrest actually, when I thanked him, actually came up and planted a kiss on my forehead and said, "I'm so proud of you," which you don't get to hear that as an Indigenous person. So, yeah.
I suppose just one key message from that is it's the opportunity. It's to reach the $1 billion. There was 102 contracts and subcontracts that are awarded. It wasn't just a couple of big joint ventures that got us there. So it was a lot of work. It was a lot of the small contracts that took just as much time as the big contracts, but they're all necessary. And there were 52 Aboriginal businesses that actually awarded those contracts. And look, I'd like to invite Raylene Button, her partner, who's hiding over there behind the pole, who was one of the stars of the video. He sort of got dobbed in. Raylene sort of pulled rank, didn't you, Raylene, and dobbed him in. But I think it's important for you to hear from Raylene as also a member of one of our native title groups, Garma, up at Port Hedland, and the contracts that we've had with them, but also with her and her husband with their business. Thank you.
I'm a little nervous, so if I fall over, somebody have a bucket of water. I just want to thank the traditional owners, the Yolngu people from this country. It's the first time for me in the territory, and I'm really appreciating the country now and also the great culture, the rich culture that we, and in this area that we stand on. My people are the Garma people. We're from the Pilbara. We have 17,500 square kilometres of land and sea. And we've had negotiations with mining companies now for over 14 years. And with Fortescue, we started out in 2000, and we finally reached an agreement in 2005 in October. And since then, we've seen a lot of great benefits and opportunities were given to our people. And my group, the Garma group, we've recently just signed up joint ventures with a lot of the large catering companies with Fortescue. But also my husband and myself thought, well, I think it's time we get on the bandwagon too. And so that's what we did. It took us 6 months to get our business together. And since then, we've started with Fortescue as a subcontract, and we're slowly growing from there. My people in the Pilbara, my elders especially, they started the first Aboriginal strike in Western Australia, which started in 1946, and it was about equal opportunity. They didn't want to become slaves in their own country. And so when they took on the strike and took on the government, they walked out on the 1st of May in 1946. And ever since then, we've been drummed in by our old people. You need to start taking in the ranks because this is what's happened. We need to become leaders in our own community. And so it's myself as a young woman standing here and sharing that story. I'm privileged and thankful for my elders. And also after them came the second strike in Wave Hill in 1966 with the Gurindji people. And the government then started to take notice, and they then looked at our people and said, well, now it's time to start making changes. And just even sitting here in the last couple of days, listening to the traditional owners of this area and how they're starting to empower and take governance and be self-determined and having self-efficiency in their own area, it's really given me something, sparked something inside of me that to want to just take back home and say, hey, let's do something here as well. Not just in business, but also with government. I know we've all been fighting government for years, but yeah, that's what the positive message for me is, to just take that back home and share it with my people. This is what's happening here in the territory, and I know our people are starting to do things back home, but not as much as here. Unfortunately, this is such a beautiful country, and my home is slowly being destroyed by mining companies. So we can't take on tourism, because we'll take you out, then you'll see a lot of holes in the ground. But like I said, our people, we've started to now saying, okay, let's get in there, let's get involved, and this is what's happening with our country. If we don't do it, someone else is going to do it. And so that's what a lot of our people have been doing. And it's also brought in a lot of determination in themselves and built up a lot of self-esteem with our people. And they're now starting to take on the leadership roles. A lot of us don't have any business background. We've never been up to higher education. Majority of my people have never finished school or still don't know how to read and write. But we're actually now looking at these opportunities and taking it on and taking on the challenges that come with it. So I'd like to thank you and for giving me this time and opportunity to stand here and share with you our story. So thank you.
Well, that concludes our session. I'd like to thank Timothy and John and Heath and Raylene and Bill and Michael and everyone for putting the effort in today for their presentations and that. Let's not make no bones about it. Carrying on from the words of Galaroy today in regard to coming out of sleep, awakening land rights again and making our country alive again. And talking about not only the spirituality of our country, but talking about the economic benefits, the education, the health and everything that we need to make our people strong. And the stories that I hear today and I hear continuously when I come to Garma are nothing but inspiring, and you do inspire us, Raylene, and your husband hiding behind the pole. He's not so hiding, he's a big boy. It is inspirational, and it is the way forward. You know, for many years we've been arguing this case, for many years we've been arguing it. I remember in 2004 we put forward the proposal of Aboriginal people having the right to own their own houses, and the driving forward and the insults and attacks that we got from that. And we drove forward in regard to commercial development on our land and making opportunities and jobs and feeding our kids and making our communities safe and viable. And we still cop flaks from that, but we keep driving ahead because this is the only way forward for our people. This is the only way forward for true self-determination and for true independence. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the Garma.